The ruthless Zoraxians cracked open city domes and slaughtered millions of denobulans, leaving entire continents in radioactive ashes. Despite their technological superiority, the denobulans were losing badly to the Zoraxians' relentless onslaught. City after city fell, erased from the face of once vibrant worlds by the Zoraxians' dreaded planet-killing weapons. Ceres, the denobulan Grand Marshal, watched helplessly as the casualty reports streamed in. Her forces were demoralized, battered, and broken. At this rate, the denobulans would be extinct within a year. There was only one hope left, a desperate gamble that could turn the tide or doom them all. Ceres activated the comm unit and hailed humanity's leaders on Earth. The humans were primitive compared to the denobulans, having only recently ventured out into the stars, and not yet a major player in galactic politics. But they were fierce, unpredictable warriors, with a reputation for doing the impossible. And right now, impossible was exactly what Ceres needed. Ryan Powell, humanity's most renowned soldier, received the call. The grizzled veteran had a tragic past, but lived for the thrill of combat. He quickly assembled an elite team of Earth's deadliest fighters and sharpest minds. When Ryan's team arrived on the denobulan homeworld, they were shocked by the apocalyptic devastation. Crumbling ruins stretched to the horizon where majestic cities once stood. Ceres greeted the humans somberly, detailing the Zoraxians' fearsome capabilities and the imminent threat of extinction. The humans were the denobulans' last chance. If Ryan failed here, not only would the denobulans perish, but the Zoraxians would rampage unchecked across the galaxy, enslaving or annihilating every race they encountered, including humanity. The fate of trillions rested on this small band of human warriors. As the humans embedded with the denobulan military, tensions flared. The denobulans were skeptical that the comparatively primitive humans could make a difference against a foe that so outclassed them technologically. But Ryan's unorthodox strategies and inspirational leadership quickly earned the aliens' respect. When the Zoraxians attacked a vital military base, Ryan's team rushed to its defense. In a vicious firefight, the humans unleashed advanced weaponry and unconventional tactics that stunned the overconfident Zoraxians. Ryan's soldiers racked up an incredible kill count, decimating the enemy and forcing them to retreat. It was a crucial victory that gave the denobulans a shred of hope and sent shockwaves across the galaxy. If humans could bloody the Zoraxians, maybe they weren't invincible after all. But the war was far from over, and the Zoraxians still possessed the terrifying ability to scour entire planets of life. Ryan and Ceres grew close as they fought side by side, learning to trust each other completely. Together, humans and denobulans sought any weakness in Zoraxian technology that could give them an edge. All the while, the threat of a final, devastating Zoraxian attack loomed over the Allied forces, promising swift extinction if they failed. The humans had stepped into the fight, and now the fate of galaxies hinged on their victory. As news of the successful mission spread, cheers erupted throughout the denobulan ranks. Soldiers clapped each other on the back, their spirits lifted by the glimmer of hope Ryan and his team had provided. Ceres summoned Ryan to her command center, a grim smile on her face as she shook his hand firmly. "Damn fine work out there, Powell," she said. "You and your team have given us a fighting chance." Ryan nodded, his expression somber. "We got lucky, and we paid a price. Ethan, he didn't make it back." Ceres placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice softening. "I'm sorry, Ryan, but his sacrifice wasn't in vain. The intel you brought back, it's invaluable." She gestured to a holographic display where denobulan scientists were already poring over the stolen Zoraxian data. "We're discovering weaknesses we never knew existed, chinks in their armor that we can exploit." Ryan studied the display, his mind racing with possibilities. "What's our next move?" Ceres zoomed in on a specific section of the Zoraxian research base. "This is their central data hub. If we can infiltrate it and upload a virus into their systems, we could cripple their planet killer before they even have a chance to use it." Ryan leaned forward, memorizing every detail of the schematics. "I'll need my best people on this. Marcus, definitely. and Taryn, our explosives expert. Ceres nodded. Assemble your team. But Ryan, there's something else you should know. She pulled up a security feed from the research facility, showing a familiar figure strapped to an operating table, surrounded by Xeraxian scientists. Ryan's heart stopped. It was Ethan, alive but screaming in agony, as the Xeraxians performed twisted experiments on him. Those bastards, Ryan growled, his fists clenched. We have to get him out of there. Agreed, Ceres said, but the data hub is our top priority. If we don't take out that weapon... I know, Ryan said, his voice raw with emotion. But I'm not leaving him behind. Not again. Ceres held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Bring our boy home, Ryan. But be careful, we're all counting on you. Ryan saluted, his eyes blazing with purpose. I won't let you down, ma'am. As he strode from the command center, Ryan's mind was already racing, formulating a plan to infiltrate the heart of the Xeraxian base and rescue his friend. He knew the odds were against them, that every mission could be their last. But he also knew that he had the best damn team in the galaxy at his back, and together they would face whatever horrors the Xeraxians threw at them and come out swinging on the other side. The Denobulans watched the humans go, their hearts swelling with a newfound sense of pride and hope. They had always considered themselves the most advanced race in the galaxy, but now they were beginning to realize that sometimes heart and courage could be more powerful than any technology. And in Ryan Powell and his team, they had found an ally with both in spades. Marcus cracked his knuckles as he fell into step beside Ryan, a fierce grin on his face. So, boss man, we really doing this? Waltzing right into the belly of the beast? Ryan nodded grimly. Ethan's counting on us, and if we can give the Denobulans a shot at ending this war, then that's a bonus in my book. Taryn, a wiry woman with close-cropped hair and a scar running down her cheek, chuckled darkly. Bonus? Shit, Powell, if we pull this off, they'll be building statues of us on every Denobulan world from here to the galactic rim. Ryan allowed himself a small smile, the first genuine one in days. One thing at a time, Taryn. First we bring our boy home. Then we kick some Xeraxian teeth in. As the human strike team boarded their ship and blasted off toward the heart of enemy territory, a new sense of purpose burned in their hearts. They had started this war as outsiders, primitive newcomers stumbling into a conflict beyond their understanding. But now, they were right at the center of the fight, the tip of the spear in the battle for the fate of humanity and all alien species itself, and come hell or high water, they would see it through to the end. The first phase of the mission went smoothly, the human stealth ship slipping past Xeraxian patrols and sensor nets with ease. But as they drew closer to the research base, the real challenge began. Xeraxian fighter craft swarmed around the facility like angry hornets, while surface-to-air batteries tracked the skies with relentless vigilance. The humans would have only one shot at this, a split-second window to infiltrate the base before all hell broke loose. Ryan reviewed the plan one last time, his voice steady over the comm link. Marcus, you're up first. Get in, find a terminal, and start hacking. We need those security systems down. The hacker nodded, his fingers flying over his console. Aye, aye, boss. One all-access pass to the Xeraxian funhouse, coming right up. Taryn, once Marcus gives the signal, you and I will head for the cell blocks. We grab Ethan and any other prisoners we can find, then haul ass to the evac point. The demolitions expert grinned fiercely, patting the pack of explosives at her side. And if any Xeraxian scum gets in our way. Ryan's eyes glinted coldly. Then we show them what happens when you mess with the Powell Brigade. As the ship hurtled toward the base, alarms suddenly blared to life, warning lights flashing across the cockpit. They had been spotted. But there was no turning back now. With a fierce battle cry, Ryan and his team leaped into action, ready to face whatever came next. They had a mission to complete, a friend to save, and a war to win, once and for all. Ryan strode into Ceres's command center, his fists tight with perseverance. We need to go back, he said without preamble. Ethan's still alive, We can't leave him there. Ceres looked up from her holographic display, her eyes narrowing. It's too risky, Powell. We barely made it out last time. Which is why I need your help, Ryan countered. He laid out his plan, detailing the intel they could gather along with rescuing Ethan. Ceres listened intently, then nodded. All right, I'll give you a team of our best. But this is your op, Powell. Don't make me regret it. Minutes later, Ryan found himself face to face with a group of Denobulan soldiers. One stepped forward, his scarred face a map of past battles. I'm Zarin, he growled. This better not be a suicide mission, human. Ryan met his gaze unflinchingly. We're bringing our people home, all of them. As their ship approached the Xeraxian facility, Ryan's stomach dropped. Shit, he muttered. They've moved underground. Zarin peered at the scanners. Tripled patrols, too. This just got a lot harder. Ryan's mind raced. Marcus, can you scramble their comms? The hacker's fingers flew across his console. On it, boss. Give me 2 minutes. Ryan turned to the team. We hit hard and fast. Zarin, you're with me. We'll... Suddenly, alarms blared. Xeraxian fighters swarmed toward them. Guess we're improvising, Ryan shouted. Marcus, now! The hacker slammed a button and chaos erupted below. Xeraxian soldiers stumbled, their communications dissolving into static. Ryan and Zarin led the charge into the bunker, plasma bolts sizzling past. They fought back to back, human and Denobulan moves blending seamlessly. Not bad for a primitive, Zarin grunted, dropping another Xeraxian. Ryan grinned despite himself. You're not so bad yourself, old-timer. They fought their way deeper, finally reaching a heavily fortified door. Ryan planted charges while Zarin provided cover fire. The explosion rocked the corridor, revealing a horrific sight. Ethan lay strapped to a table, his body a mass of cuts and bruises. Ryan rushed to his friend's side, quickly working to free him. Ryan? Ethan's voice was weak. You came back. Always, Ryan replied, his voice thick. Let's get you out of here. As they turned to leave, Zarin called out, Powell, you need to see this. In an adjacent room, banks of computers hummed. It's their central database, Zarin said. If we could access this... Ryan hesitated, torn between his injured friend and the invaluable intel. Zarin, get Ethan to the extraction point. I'll grab what I can here. Zarin nodded, respect evident in his eyes. Don't take too long, human. I'd hate to have to save your ass. As Zarin carried Ethan away, Ryan dove into the Xeraxian systems. He was so focused he almost missed the telltale whine of plasma rifles powering up. He spun, finding himself surrounded by Xeraxian elites. Ryan's hands tightened on his weapon. Well, he muttered, this might hurt. The battle that followed was brutal. Ryan's armor smoked from near misses, his own shots finding vulnerable points in Xeraxian defenses. But he was outnumbered, rapidly running out of options. Just as a Xeraxian closed in for the kill, a familiar voice rang out. Duck, human! Ryan dropped as Zarin burst in, guns blazing. Together, they cleared the room in seconds. Thought you could use a hand, Zarin said, clasping Ryan's shoulder. Ryan nodded gratefully. Let's blow this hellhole. They sprinted through collapsing corridors as Marcus's explosives did their work. Flames licked at their heels as they dove into their ship, Ethan already secured inside. As they broke atmosphere, cheers erupted. They'd done it. Against the odds, they'd rescued Ethan and secured priceless intel. Back at the Denobulan base, medics swarmed Ethan, while scientists pored over the stolen data. Ceres approached Ryan, a rare smile on her face. Well done, Powell. This could turn the tide. As the excitement died down, Ethan beckoned Ryan closer. His voice was weak, but urgent. Ryan, I overheard their plans. The Xeraxians, they're planning something big, a final push to wipe us out. Ryan's blood ran cold as Ethan detailed the Xeraxians' massive assault plan. He shared a grim look with Ceres. The real fight was just beginning. Ryan's blood ran cold as Ethan detailed the Xeraxians' massive assault plan. He shared a grim look with Ceres. The real fight was just beginning. We need to act fast, Ryan said, his mind already racing with possibilities. Gather everyone. We're going to hit them before they can hit us. Within hours, Ryan, Ceres, Zarin, Marcus, and their most trusted advisors huddled around a holographic display of Zoraxian space. The tension in the room was palpable as they outlined their daring counter-strategy. Marcus, you're up first, Ryan said, nodding to the hacker. We need you to cripple their command and control systems. Marcus cracked his knuckles, a fierce grin spreading across his face. Time to show these Zoraxian bastards what a real cyber attack looks like. As Marcus set to work, his fingers flying across his console at inhuman speeds, Ryan turned to Zarin. You and I are leading a strike team against their main shipyard. We'll hit them hard and fast, leave nothing but scrap metal behind. Zarin nodded grimly, checking the charge on his plasma rifle. Just like old times, eh, Powell? The plan unfolded with brutal efficiency. Marcus's attack struck first, sending Zoraxian communication networks into chaos. Frantic transmissions filled the airwaves as confused commanders received conflicting orders and false information. Taking advantage of the confusion, Ryan and Zarin's strike force slipped past the Zoraxian defenses. They emerged from hyperspace directly above the shipyard, catching the enemy completely off guard. All units, weapons free, Ryan barked into his comm. Take out those dry docks. A hail of plasma fire and missiles rained down on the shipyard. Zoraxian vessels still under construction exploded in brilliant fireballs, while frantic workers scrambled for cover. Ryan and Zarin led the charge, their boots hitting the deck of the main control center. They fought back-to-back, human and denobulan, their movements in perfect sync as they cut through the Zoraxian defenders. Charge is set. Terran's voice crackled over the comm. This place is going to blow sky high in 2 minutes. As they fought their way back to their ships, Ryan couldn't help but grin at Zarin. Not bad for a couple of old-timers, huh? Zarin chuckled, dropping another Zoraxian with a well-placed shot. Speak for yourself, human. I'm just getting warmed up. They barely cleared the blast radius as the shipyard erupted in a massive fireball, taking with it the Zoraxians' ability to replace their losses. Meanwhile, Ceres coordinated a series of lightning raids on Zoraxian supply lines. Denobulan commandos, guided by intel from Ryan's team, struck key logistics hubs with surgical precision. Status report, Ceres barked, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Supply Depot Omega is down, a Denobulan officer reported. Fuel reserves destroyed, ammunition stockpiles captured. Ceres allowed herself a small smile. Excellent. Keep the pressure on. Don't give them a chance to breathe. The Zoraxians, reeling from the unexpected onslaught, attempted to regroup and launch a massive counterattack. But their efforts were hampered at every turn by Marcus's continuing cyber assaults and the damage to their infrastructure. Ryan and Ceres watched from the bridge of the Denobulan flagship as the Zoraxian fleet stumbled into their carefully laid trap. Human strike craft darted between the lumbering Zoraxian cruisers, picking them off one by one. Now, Powell, Ceres said, her voice tight with anticipation. Spring the trap. Ryan nodded, keying his comm. All units execute Operation Trojan Horse. I repeat, execute Trojan Horse. Across the battlefield, Denobulan warships suddenly dropped their stealth fields, catching the Zoraxian fleet in a devastating crossfire. The space around them lit up with the flash of explosions and the burning hulks of Zoraxian ships. But Ryan knew the real fight was just beginning. He turned to Zarin, his eyes blazing with willpower. Ready for another dance, old friend? Zarin grinned, hefting his rifle. Thought you'd never ask. Together they boarded a stealth shuttle, leading a small team on the most daring mission yet, infiltrating the Zoraxian flagship itself. The acrid smell of plasma discharge lingered in the air as Ryan and his team boarded the Denobulan flagship. Their recent victory over the Zoraxian fleet had been hard-won, but Ryan knew the war was just getting started. As he strode into the war room, he saw Ceres hunched over a holographic display, her face etched with concentration. She looked up as he entered, a grim smile on her face. Powell, good work out there. Ryan nodded, his eyes scanning the tactical readouts. What's our next move? Ceres tapped a control, bringing up a new display. Intelligence reports the Zoraxians are falling back to their core worlds. They're digging in for a last stand. Ryan studied the data, his mind racing. After a moment, he looked up, his eyes blazing with intensity. We need to end this, now, before they can regroup. He outlined his plan, detailing a daring infiltration of the Zoraxian homeworld itself. As he spoke, he could see the doubt in Ceres' eyes slowly give way to grudging agreement. It's risky, pal, very risky, but you're right. This might be our best shot at ending the war decisively. With Ceres' approval secured, Ryan set to work assembling his team. Marcus was his first choice. The hacker's skills would be crucial for bypassing Zoraxian defenses. Zarin was next. The grizzled Denobulan warrior had proven himself time and again in combat. For weeks, they trained relentlessly, pushing themselves to the brink of exhaustion. They pored over every scrap of intelligence on the Zoraxian homeworld, memorizing defense layouts and patrol patterns. Finally, the day of the infiltration arrived. As their stealth craft approached the Zoraxian homeworld, Ryan felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the mix of fear and anticipation that preceded every mission. Marcus sat at the controls, his fingers dancing over the console. Initiating cyber attack sequence. Now. On the interface, Ryan watched as Zoraxian defense systems began to flicker and fail. Alarms blared as the enemy scrambled to respond, but it was too late. We're in, Marcus announced, a fierce grin on his face. Punching through their atmosphere now. The ship shuddered as they made their descent, the hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Ryan gripped his seat, his eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching ground. With a bone-jarring thud, they landed. Ryan was on his feet instantly, weapon at the ready. Move out, stay low, stay quiet. They emerged into a harsh, alien landscape. The air was thick and sulfurous, making breathing difficult. In the distance, towering spires of the Zoraxian capital loomed against a blood-red sky. For days, they trekked across the hostile terrain, narrowly avoiding Zoraxian patrols. Ryan pushed them hard, knowing that every moment increased their chances of detection. As they approached the outskirts of the capital, Ryan called a halt. Time to split up. Zarin, you know what to do. The Denobulan nodded grimly, leading his team off to set the diversion in motion. Ryan watched them go, a knot of worry in his gut. Minutes later, the night sky lit up with explosions. Zoraxian forces scrambled, rushing to respond to the apparent attack. That's our cue, Ryan muttered. Marcus, you're with me. Donning stolen Zoraxian uniforms, they slipped into the chaos of the city. Ryan's heart pounded as they navigated through checkpoints, praying their disguises would hold. At last, they reached the High Command's compound. Marcus immediately set to work on the security systems, his face a mask of concentration. We're in, he whispered, the doors sliding open silently. They moved swiftly through the compound, weapons at the ready. As they burst into the main chamber, Ryan found himself face to face with the Zoraxian High Command. Surrender now, he demanded, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The Zoraxian leaders snarled in defiance, reaching for their weapons. The room erupted in a storm of plasma fire. Ryan dove for cover, returning fire. The battle was intense, close-quarters combat at its most brutal. He saw Marcus go down, but the hacker was back up in seconds, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. In the end, it was over quickly. The Zoraxian High Command lay dead, their bodies smoking from plasma burns. Ryan wasted no time. He and Marcus seized control of the communication systems, broadcasting their victory to all Zoraxian forces. Your leaders are dead, Ryan announced, his voice echoing across the planet. Lay down your arms. The war is over. As the reality of their defeat sank in, Zoraxian forces began to surrender en masse. Ryan watched from the compound's balcony as enemy ships landed, their crews emerging with hands raised. In the days that followed, Ryan worked tirelessly alongside Ceres to oversee the disarmament of the Zoraxian worlds. It was grueling work, but necessary to ensure lasting peace. As the process neared completion, Ryan found himself standing with Ceres, looking out over the now peaceful Zoraxian capital. "We did it," Ceres said softly, her voice tinged with disbelief. Ryan nodded, feeling the weight of all they had endured. "Yes," he replied, "but at what cost?" Ceres turned to him, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and hope. "We have a chance now, a chance to build something better." Ryan met her gaze, seeing in it the same drive that had carried them through the war. "Then let's make it count," he said, his voice firm with determination. Together they turned back to the city, ready to face the challenges of peace with the same courage they had shown in war. The acrid smell of ozone and burning circuitry filled the air as Ryan and his team fought their way through the Zarkoth flagship. Alarms blared, casting an eerie red glow over the metallic corridors. Ryan's boots pounded against the deck plating as he sprinted, plasma rifle clutched tight against his chest. "Marcus, status!" he barked into his comm. "Almost there," Marcus's voice crackled back, strained with exertion. "These bastards don't give up easy." Ryan ducked as a bolt of energy sizzled past his head, leaving a scorch mark on the bulkhead. He spun, returning fire in a fluid motion. The Zarkoth soldier crumpled, its chitinous exoskeleton smoking. "Zarin, take point!" Ryan ordered. The Denobulan warrior nodded grimly, hefting his heavy pulse cannon and charging forward. They fought their way through waves of Zarkoth defenders, the air thick with energy bolts and the screams of the wounded. Ryan's muscles burned with fatigue, but he pushed on, knowing the fate of billions hung in the balance. Finally, they reached the massive doors of the command center. Marcus's fingers flew over his datapad, bypassing security protocols at lightning speed. "We're in," he shouted as the doors hissed open. Ryan and his team burst into the cavernous chamber. Banks of alien computers lined the walls, pulsing with strange energies. At the center stood the Zarkoth Supreme Commander, a towering figure encased in ornate battle armor. "Surrender now," Ryan demanded, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "This ends today." The Zarkoth leader's multifaceted eyes gleamed with contempt. "Insignificant vermin," it hissed in a voice like grinding metal. "You dare challenge the masters of the galaxy?" With a gesture, the commander summoned a platoon of elite guards. The air erupted in a storm of weapons fire. Ryan dove behind a control console, feeling the heat of near misses on his skin. "Marcus now!" he shouted into his comm. Across the ship, Marcus initiated his cyber attack. Lights flickered and systems faltered. The Zarkoth soldiers stumbled, their neural links to the ship's systems disrupted. Ryan seized the moment, leading a furious assault. His rifle spat death, each shot finding its mark with lethal precision. Zarin was a blur of motion beside him, his pulse cannon carving swaths through the enemy ranks. The Zarkoth commander roared in fury, charging at Ryan with inhuman speed. Ryan barely managed to dodge, feeling the wind of the alien strike ruffle his hair. They grappled, human tenacity against alien strength. Just as Ryan's arms began to give way, a deafening explosion rocked the ship. Marcus's diversionary tactics had paid off, sowing chaos throughout the vessel. The momentary distraction was all Ryan needed. He twisted, breaking the commander's grip and striking with all his might. The Zarkoth leader staggered back, stunned. "Now, Marcus!" Ryan shouted. Marcus's fingers danced across his console, uploading the virus into the Zarkoth network. The effect was immediate. Screens flickered and died, the hum of power fading to silence. Ryan turned to the Zarkoth commander, who stood amidst the wreckage of its once mighty command center. "It's over," Ryan said, his voice heavy with the weight of victory. Outside, Ceres watched from the bridge of the Denobulan flagship as the Zarkoth armada fell into disarray. She allowed herself a small smile before keying her comm. "All ships, this is Admiral Ceres. Commence attack pattern Omega. Let's finish this." The combined human Denobulan fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. The once invincible Zarkoth armada, now crippled and confused, stood little chance against the coordinated assault. As the battle raged outside, Ryan secured the Zarkoth commander and began the process of shutting down the flagship's remaining systems. He knew the war wasn't over yet, but for the first time since the Zarkoth appeared, he dared to hope for victory. Ryan's boots clanged against the deck as he strode into the war room. The air buzzed with tension and the acrid smell of ozone from overworked computer banks. Siri stood hunched over a holographic display, her face etched with worry. "We've got a problem," she said without looking up. Ryan leaned in, studying the swirling patterns of red dots representing the Zarkoth fleet. "They're regrouping." Siri's nodded. "Intel suggests they're preparing for a massive counterstrike. We need to act fast." Ryan's mind raced, considering their options. He tapped a control, bringing up a new display. "They're shipyards. If we take those out, we cripple their ability to repair and resupply." Sirius's eyes widened. "That's insane. Those facilities are deep in Zarkoth space, heavily defended." "Exactly why they won't expect it," Ryan countered. He outlined his plan, detailing a series of precision strikes utilizing their most advanced stealth tech. After a long moment, Sirius nodded. "Let's do it." Within hours, they had assembled their strike force. Ryan watched as Marcus briefed his cyber warfare team, their faces glowing in the light of data screens. "Remember," Marcus said, "our job is to create chaos. Hit their comms, their defenses, everything." The attack began with a series of silent explosions across Zarkoth space. Stealth fighters slipped past orbital defenses, their weapons finding vulnerable targets with surgical precision. In the command center of the Denobulan flagship, Ryan watched the operation unfold. Suddenly, alarms blared. "Sir, we've been detected," a technician shouted. "Zarkoth forces are mobilizing." Ryan keyed his comm. "Marcus, now." Across the battlefield, Marcus and his team unleashed their cyber assault. Zarkoth systems flickered and died, plunging their defenses into chaos. "That's our window," Ryan said. "All teams, move in." Ryan's shuttle screamed toward the massive Zarkoth shipyard, plasma bolts streaking past. With a bone-jarring thud, they landed on the outer hull. "Breach charges," Ryan ordered. The hull erupted in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. They poured into the facility, immediately met by a hail of Zarkoth fire. Ryan ducked behind a console, feeling the heat of near misses. "Zarin, left flank!" he shouted. The Denobulan warrior nodded, his pulse cannon carving a path through the alien defenders. They fought their way through twisting corridors, the air thick with weapons fire and the screams of the wounded. Ryan's muscles burned, but he pushed on, knowing what was at stake. Finally, they reached the central control hub. The doors hissed open, revealing the Zarkoth lead engineer, a towering figure encased in chitinous armor. "Surrender," Ryan demanded, his weapon trained on the alien. The engineer's multifaceted eyes gleamed with defiance. With lightning speed, it lashed out, knocking Ryan's weapon aside. The room erupted in chaos. Ryan and Zarin engaged the engineer in brutal close-quarters combat, dodging its powerful strikes while looking for an opening. Suddenly, the facility shuddered. Emergency klaxons blared as systems began to fail. Marcus had succeeded in breaching their defenses. The momentary distraction was all Ryan needed. He ducked under the engineer's guard, delivering a punishing blow to its midsection. Zarin followed up with a sweeping kick, sending the alien crashing to the ground. With the engineer subdued and the facility in Allied hands, the remaining Zarkoth forces had no choice but to surrender. In the days that followed, Ryan and Ceres oversaw the dismantling of the captured shipyard. Massive cutting torches carved through alien alloys, reducing the once mighty facility to scrap. As they worked, reports flooded in of Marcus's continued cyber assaults across Zarkoth space. Their communications were in tatters, supply lines disrupted. Ceres turned to Ryan, a fierce light in her eyes. "It's time. We've got them on the ropes." Ryan nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Agreed. Let's end this." They returned to the war room, where Ceres rallied their combined fleets. A sea of determined faces looked back at them through holographic displays. "This is our chance," Ceres said, her voice ringing with authority. "To strike a blow for freedom, for our future. Are you with me? A chorus of affirmatives echoed through the chamber. Ryan stepped forward, outlining their battle plan. With surgical precision, he detailed how they would exploit the Zarkoth's weaknesses, striking at key targets across multiple fronts. As the fleets moved into position, Ryan felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He knew the fight ahead would be brutal, but for the first time since the war began, he dared to hope for victory. The order was given. Across the sector, human and denobulan ships engaged the battered Zarkoth armada. The void of space lit up with weapons fire as the final battle began. The final battle raged on, but Ryan's mind was already racing ahead. He stood in the war room, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of Zarkoth territory. A flashing red dot caught his attention, Zarkor Prime. "Ceres, look at this," he called out, pointing to the display. She hurried over, her brow furrowing as she took in the information. "Massive troop movements. They're fortifying Zarkor Prime." Ryan nodded grimly. "It's their R&D hub. If they're throwing everything they have at defending it, then it's where we need to strike," Ceres finished. They worked tirelessly, poring over intelligence reports and formulating a plan. Days blurred into weeks as they assembled their team. Marcus for cyber warfare, Zarin for combat expertise, and a group of denobulan commandos handpicked for their stealth skills. The captured Zarkoth vessel hummed with nervous energy as they approached Zarkor Prime. Ryan's hands tightened on the controls, sweat beading on his forehead as they slipped past the planet's outer defenses. Suddenly, alarms blared. "We've been detected," Marcus shouted from his console. Ryan's stomach dropped. "Evasive maneuvers! Everyone, battle stations!" The ship bucked as Zarkoth fighters swarmed around them. Energy bolts streaked past the viewports, the hull shuddering with each near miss. Ryan's world narrowed to the controls in front of him, every fiber of his being focused on getting them to the surface alive. They plummeted through the atmosphere, the ship groaning under the strain. With a bone-jarring impact, they hit the ground, skidding to a stop in a field of twisted alien vegetation. "Everyone out! Move!" Ryan ordered, grabbing his gear. They spilled out of the ship, immediately taking cover as Zarkoth patrols converged on their position. The air filled with the screech of energy weapons and the acrid smell of burnt foliage. For days, they pushed through the hostile terrain of Zarkor Prime. They slogged through swamps that hissed and bubbled with unknown chemicals, scaled cliffs of razor-sharp crystal, and huddled in caves as storms of metallic sand scoured the landscape. As they neared the research complex, Marcus tapped furiously at his portable console. "Initiating cyber assault now." The massive doors of the complex flickered, their energy fields faltering. Ryan nodded to Zarin. "This is it. Let's move." They burst through the opening, immediately met by a hail of Zarkoth fire. Ryan ducked and rolled, coming up with his weapon blazing. Zarin was a blur of motion beside him, his powerful frame sending Zarkoth soldiers flying. They fought their way deeper into the facility, Marcus working his tech magic to bypass security systems. Each new area brought fresh waves of defenders, the air thick with energy bolts and the screams of the wounded. Finally, they reached the central chamber. As the doors hissed open, Ryan came face to face with the Zarkoth lead scientist. The alien's multifaceted eyes gleamed with a mixture of fear and defiance. "It's over," Ryan said, his weapon trained on the scientist. "Surrender now." The scientist's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You're too late, human," it hissed, slamming a clawed hand down on a nearby console. Alarms blared as the facility's self-destruct sequence initiated. Ryan's heart raced as he turned to Marcus. "Can you stop it?" Marcus was already at work, his fingers flying over his tech interface. "I'm trying, but their systems are unlike anything I've seen before." Ryan gritted his teeth, turning back to the scientist. "Shut it down, now!" The alien's only response was to lunge at him, its powerful limbs striking with lightning speed. Ryan barely managed to dodge, feeling the wind of the blow ruffle his hair. As Ryan grappled with the scientist, the rest of the team fought to hold off waves of Zarkoth reinforcements. the air filled with weapons fire and the clash of hand-to-hand combat. 10 seconds! Marcus shouted, his voice strained with effort. Ryan managed to pin the scientist, looking into its alien eyes. Is this really how you want it to end? For a moment, the creature hesitated. Then, with a defeated slump of its shoulders, it gestured to a nearby console. Now, Marcus, Ryan yelled. Marcus's fingers flew over the controls, and with a second to spare, the alarms fell silent. As they secured the facility and its valuable data, Ryan keyed his comm. Ceres, we're in. You're clear to begin the assault. From orbit, the combined human and Denobulan fleet opened fire. The skies of Zarkor Prime lit up with the fury of their bombardment, targeting the planet's remaining defenses with pinpoint accuracy, guided by the intelligence Ryan's team provided. Ryan watched from a view screen as the once mighty facilities of Zarkor Prime crumbled under the onslaught. Each explosion represented another blow against the Zarkoth's technological superiority, another step towards evening the odds in this brutal war. The acrid smell of burnt circuitry and ozone still hung in the air as Ryan and Ceres strode into the command center. Technicians scrambled around them, piecing together the wreckage of Zarkor Prime's defenses. Ryan's muscles ached from days of intense combat, but a new tension gripped him as he noticed Ceres' furrowed brow. What is it? He asked, leaning in close. Ceres tapped a series of commands into her wrist computer, bringing up a holographic display. We've intercepted a transmission. It's unlike anything we've seen before. The air shimmered as alien characters danced across the projection. Ryan squinted, trying to make sense of the bizarre script. Can we decode it? Already done, Ceres replied, her voice tight. It's from a group of Zarkoth dissidents. They're seeking asylum. Ryan's eyes widened. Zarkoth turncoats? That's a first? The message flickered to life, translated into human standard. As Ryan read, his blood ran cold. A weapon that can destroy entire star systems? This can't be real. Ceres nodded grimly. The dissident's leader, Kal Rath, claims it is, and he's offering us everything he knows about it. Ryan paced, his mind racing. If this is true, we can't ignore it, but extracting them from Zarkoth space... It's suicide, Ceres finished. But what choice do we have? Hours blurred together as they formulated their plan. Ryan stood before the assembled strike team, faces both familiar and new-looking back at him. Marcus, his eyes ringed with exhaustion, nodded grimly. Zarin, the Denobulan warrior, checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. This mission is strictly volunteer, Ryan said, his voice echoing in the briefing room. We'll be deep in enemy territory with no backup. Our objective is to extract Kal Rath and his followers, along with any intel they can provide. The room remained silent, each member of the team weighing the gravity of the situation. Ryan continued, We'll be using a captured Zarkoth vessel. It's our best shot at slipping past their defenses undetected. As they boarded the alien craft, Ryan's skin crawled. The ship's organic curves and pulsing biolights were a stark reminder of the enemy they faced. He settled into the command chair, unfamiliar controls spreading out before him. Marcus, you're our eyes and ears, Ryan said. Keep us off their scopes. Marcus nodded, his fingers dancing across alien interfaces. The ship hummed to life, slipping out of the docking bay and into the inky void of space. For days, they traveled in tense silence, skirting the edges of Zarkoth patrols. As they neared the rendezvous coordinates, alarms suddenly blared. We've been spotted! Marcus shouted, his hands flying over the controls. Ryan gripped the arms of his chair as the ship banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of enemy fire. Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of here. The vessel shuddered under the assault, warning lights flashing across every console. Ryan's heart pounded as he watched Zarin return fire, streaks of energy lancing out into the darkness. There! Marcus yelled, pointing to a gap in the Zarkoth formation. Ryan didn't hesitate, pushing the engines to their limit. They shot through the opening, leaving the patrol ships scrambling in their wake. As the adrenaline faded, Ryan took stock of their situation. Damage report? We're leaking atmo in the aft section, Marcus replied, his voice grim. And our stealth systems are offline. Ryan cursed under his breath. Can we make it to the rendezvous point? Marcus nodded, but his expression remained tense. Barely, but we'll be exposed the whole way. With no other choice, they pushed on. Hours later, they sat down outside an abandoned research facility, its twisted metal spires jutting into an alien sky. As they disembarked, weapons at the ready, a group of figures emerged from the shadows. Ryan's breath caught in his throat as he saw them clearly for the first time. Zarkoth, but different. Their movements were hesitant, almost fearful. One stepped forward, its multifaceted eyes gleaming in the dim light. I am Cal Rath, it said, its voice a strange mix of clicks and whistles. We have much to discuss, and little time. Ryan nodded, gesturing for the dissidents to follow them into the ship. As they boarded, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Ryan's mind raced as he processed Cal Rath's words. The loss of Zarin still stung, a raw wound that fueled his drive. He turned to Marcus, who sat hunched over a makeshift workstation, fingers flying across alien interfaces. How much time do we have? Ryan asked, his voice tight. Marcus looked up, dark circles under his eyes. Based on the intel from Cal Rath's people, days at most. The singularity device is nearly operational. Ryan nodded, jaw clenching. He faced the assembled team, a mix of human, Denobulan, and Zarkoth dissidents. We have one shot at this. Let's make it count. For the next 72 hours, they worked without rest. Cal Rath's chittering voice filled the air as he detailed the facility's defenses. Denobulan scientists pored over schematics, devising ways to sabotage the device. Ryan drilled the strike team relentlessly, running simulation after simulation. In a quiet moment, Ryan found Marcus slumped over his console. He gently shook his friend awake. Get some sleep. We need you sharp. Marcus rubbed his eyes. Can't. Not when we're so close. Ryan squeezed his shoulder. That's an order. We move in 6 hours. As Marcus stumbled off, Ryan studied the holographic display of the Zarkoth facility. The singularity device pulsed at its heart, a ticking time bomb that threatened everything. The captured Zarkoth vessel hummed as they approached their target. Ryan's hands tightened on the controls, muscle memory from countless simulations taking over. They slipped past the outer defenses, each tense second feeling like an eternity. Alarms blared as they breached the perimeter. Ryan's voice cut through the chaos. Move! 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 They poured out of the ship, immediately met by a hail of energy fire. Ryan ducked behind a twisted piece of alien architecture, the heat of near misses singing his skin. He returned fire, his weapon spitting death at the Zarkoth security forces. Marcus, take your team and find that control room, Ryan shouted over the din. We'll push for the device. Marcus nodded, leading his group down a side corridor. Ryan watched them go, then turned to his own team. Let's end this. They fought their way deeper into the facility, each step bought with blood and sweat. Ryan saw good men and women fall, their screams adding to the cacophony of battle. But they pressed on, driven by the stakes of their mission. Finally, they reached the central chamber. As the doors hissed open, Ryan came face to face with the Zarkoth lead scientist. Its multifaceted eyes gleamed with fanatical zeal. You're too late, human, it hissed. The device will cleanse the galaxy of your kind. Ryan didn't waste breath on a response. He lunged forward, tackling the alien to the ground. They grappled furiously, each seeking a killing blow. Ryan felt the scientist's claws raking his skin, drawing blood. He responded with a vicious headbutt, feeling something crack beneath the impact. Just as Ryan gained the upper hand, pinning the scientist, he heard a high-pitched whine. The singularity device was powering up, its core pulsing with sickly light. Marcus! Ryan shouted into his comm. Tell me you've got something! Marcus's voice came back, strained and crackling with static. Working on it. Their firewalls are insane. Ryan's blood ran cold as he realized what he had to do. He staggered to his feet, approaching the device. Its energy field crackled, raising the hair on his arms. "Ryan, don't!" Marcus's voice cried out. "The containment field. It'll kill you." Ryan took a deep breath, steeling himself. "No choice, old friend. It's been an honor." With that, he plunged his hands into the swirling vortex of energy. Pain beyond imagining coursed through his body, every nerve ending screaming in agony. But Ryan held on, channeling the device's power back into itself. The world went white, then black. As consciousness faded, Ryan's last thought was of home, of the peace they'd fought so hard to achieve. Then nothing.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.